Do you really know what your dog should be eating? In this essential video, a veterinarian explains in detail what should and not go into your dog's barf diet. Learn which meats are ideal, which offal can cause problems, how to put together a complete weekly menu, and why the ratio between ingredients is so important for your pet's health. We will show you the most common mistakes made by tutors, how to avoid nutritional deficiencies, and how to adapt barf even with a limited budget. If you love your dog and want the best for him, this video is a must-have. Watch it to the end. Every minute can change your pet's health forever. Like, subscribe and share with other tutors who need this information. The question of what dogs should actually eat at barf goes beyond an ingredient list. It touches on the essence of what it means to feed an animal in a natural way, respecting its physiology, its evolutionary needs, and its health. It is not a matter of fading or humanizing the animal, but of understanding that behind each meal, there are direct impacts on the dog's behavior, immunity, energy, and longevity. For many owners, starting natural food may seem like uncharted territory. So, in this video, we will reveal with precision and scientific basis what should make up the plate of a healthy dog at barf, as explained by veterinarians specializing in animal nutrition. First of all, it is essential to remember, barf is not a generic diet that serves all dogs in the same way. Age, size, breed, level of physical activity, health status, and even the local climate directly influence the ideal composition of the menu. Still, there is a basic structure, a nutritional skeleton that every tutor needs to know, and that's where we start. The correct balance of food groups is the heart of the barf diet. It is not enough to offer raw meat at random. The ratio between muscles, viscera, bones, and vegetables needs to follow a standard to ensure adequate absorption of nutrients and avoid dangerous deficiencies. According to updated guidelines by veterinary nutritionists, the standard distribution for healthy adult dogs is around 70% muscle meats, 10% offal, 10% raw and edible bones, and 10% selected vegetables and fruits. Let's understand each of these groups in detail, starting with the base, muscle meat. It is the main source of highly digestible protein and provides energy, essential amino acids, iron, and B vitamins. The best options include chicken breast or drumstick, lean beef, lamb, and even rabbit, depending on availability in your area. Pork can be used, but it should always be pre-frozen for at least 72 hours to eliminate the risk of parasites. Important: you should not overdo it with fatty meats. Excess fat, especially if combined with low bone consumption, can cause loose stools, pancreatic imbalances, and even chronic diarrhea. Therefore, the ideal is to offer lean cuts and vary between different types of protein throughout the week. A common mistake is to limit the diet to a single type of meat, such as just chicken or only liver. This impoverishes the nutritional profile and increases the risk of imbalances. Variety is the key to barf feeding, just as it is in nature. Dogs, descendants of wolves, never fed on the same animal every day. They hunted what they could find, so their organism is adapted to diversity. Moving on now to the viscera, this group usually causes fear in tutors, but it is absolutely essential. Liver, kidney, heart, and spleen are very rich sources of fat-soluble vitamins such as A, D, E, and K, as well as minerals such as copper, iron, and zinc. But beware, the liver should represent about half of the total portion of viscera, that is, about 5% of the total diet. Excess liver can cause hypervitaminosis A, a toxic condition for dogs. So don't exaggerate, even if the dog likes the taste very much. The heart, for example, is an excellent source of taurine, a vital amino acid, especially for dogs of breeds predisposed to heart disease, such as the Cocker Spaniel and the Boxer. Including different viscera throughout the week ensures a more complete nutritional profile. The third group of the barf structure is made up of raw, fleshy bones. And herein lies one of the biggest myths of canine nutrition. Many owners are afraid to offer bones for fear of choking or punctures. But science has shown that raw bones, of the right size and type, are safe and beneficial for most dogs. They provide bioavailable calcium, phosphorus, collagen, and act in the mechanical cleaning of teeth. The most suitable include chicken neck, meaty beef or pork ribs, duck wings, bone and gizzards, and quail carcasses, always raw and never cooked, as cooking hardens and crystallizes the bone structure, making it dangerous. The ideal proportion of bones is about 10% of the total diet, and should never exceed 15%. It is also essential to observe the size of the dog. Small breeds should be given smaller, softer bones, while large breeds can consume more robust bones. Proper chewing is part of the nutritional benefit, so don't replace bones with powdered calcium, except on the express recommendation of the veterinarian in cases of dogs with bone restriction. A frequent question: does industrialized feed bone count? No. These products are often made from pressed leather and offer no true nutritional value, and they often contain potentially toxic dyes, preservatives, and chemicals. Closing the structure, we come to vegetables and fruits. Although dogs are classified as facultative carnivores, that is, they have a preference for meat but can digest other foods, vegetables offer fiber, antioxidants, and phytonutrients that are important for the gut, immune, and even behavioral health of dogs. But be careful. Not just any vegetable or fruit can be included in the diet. Garlic, onions, grapes, starfruit, raw potatoes, and avocados, for example, are prohibited and can cause everything from anemia to kidney failure. Indicated ones include cooked zucchini, grated carrots, broccoli, sautéed spinach, seedless apple, banana, and blueberry. These ingredients should be offered in small quantities, always well chopped, cooked, or crushed in the processor, to facilitate digestion. Another essential point is the use of natural supplements when necessary. Not all owners know, but even a well-designed Barf diet may need supplements, such as fish oil, rich in omega-3 and DHA, raw or boiled free-range eggs, nutritional yeast, turmeric, spirulina, and even kefir or lactose-free natural yogurt. Use should be done with the guidance of a professional, but these ingredients can boost immunity, reduce inflammation, and improve the balance of the gut microbiota in dogs. Finally, every tutor who wants to set up a Barf diet responsibly needs to understand that the most important thing is not to set up an isolated meal, but to balance it throughout the days. Just like us, dogs don't need an identical diet every day, but they do need weekly balance. This reduces the risk of nutritional deficiencies and allows practical adjustments in the routine. A clear example: if one day you offer a type of meat with a low-fat content, such as chicken breast, you can compensate the next day with lean red meat and a little more offal. This alternation ensures variety and nutritional richness, just as it occurs in wildlife. Now that the Barf structure has been explained in detail, in the next block we will cover the most common mistakes that owners make when trying to follow this ratio and how to avoid them. A few simple details, such as the form of storage, the type of grinder used, or even the time of feeding, can make all the difference to the success of the diet. Even with good intention and willingness to offer the best for their dogs, many owners make mistakes that completely compromise the quality and safety of the Barf diet. Some of these mistakes are simple, such as the method of preparation or conservation. Others are more serious, such as food choices based on myths or unvalidated information. Therefore, in the second block, we will detail the main mistakes that veterinarians see in clinical practice and that, with small adjustments, can be easily avoided. After all, the objective is not only to feed, but to promote health, longevity, and quality of life for the animal. The most common mistake, according to experts, is the lack of individualized nutritional planning. Many tutors start Barf based on ready-made recipes from the internet, without taking into account the weight, size, level of physical activity, or health condition of the animal. A sedentary and neutered dog needs a completely different calorie profile than an athletic, young, and active dog. This difference is not only in the quantity, but mainly in the proportion of fat, protein, and fiber. Therefore, the first step should always be the calculation of the daily caloric requirement, done by a veterinary nutritionist. Without this, the owner may underfeed or overfeed the dog, causing muscle loss, obesity, or malnutrition. Another critical mistake is the improper use of bones. As we said in the previous block, raw and fleshy bones are beneficial, but they must be chosen responsibly. A frequent mistake is to offer bones that are too large for small dogs or dogs with compromised teeth. Another mistake is to try to adapt cooked bones for fear of raw meat, which, as we have seen, can be extremely dangerous. In addition, there are cases in which the owner offers bones daily without control of the proportion, which can lead to intestinal constipation and excess calcium. Therefore, the golden rule is clear: raw bones with meat around it in the maximum proportion of 10% of the diet, and always supervise the animal during chewing, especially in the first few weeks. A third common mistake is the improper storage of meat. Many owners buy large amounts of protein and store it incorrectly, leading to contamination or nutritional loss. Raw meat should be frozen immediately after purchase, in individual portions, with clearly visible dates. Defrosting should be done in the refrigerator, never at room temperature. Reusing thawed meat or refreezing already opened portions can put the animal's health at risk. In addition, the use of boards, knives, and jars exclusively for the preparation of the dog's food helps to avoid cross-contamination with human food. Remember, dogs have a digestive system adapted to deal with natural bacteria from raw meat, but that doesn't mean that all poorly stored food is safe. It is also very common to see tutors exaggerating vegetables or treating them as human salad. This is a dangerous mistake. Excess fiber can hinder the absorption of essential minerals and cause gastrointestinal changes. Also, not every vegetable is safe for dogs. We have already seen that garlic, onions, grapes, and starfruit are prohibited, but there are other precautions. Excessive spinach can interfere with calcium absorption and cause kidney problems in predisposed dogs. Beets can change the color of urine and confound diagnoses. And pumpkin, although healthy, should not exceed 10% of the vegetable portion. so as not to alter the caloric balance. So less is more. Use vegetables as a functional supplement, not as the basis of your diet. A silent trap in natural eating is the excessive repetition of ingredients. Many tutors, out of practicality or fear of varying, end up always offering the same meat, the same bone, the same fruit. Over time, this leads to a monotonous and poor diet, which does not provide a variety of amino acids, vitamins, and minerals. Diversity is essential at Barf. Alternating between chicken, beef, lamb, and fish, when possible, gives you a more complete profile. Varying the vegetables within the safe list also helps balance soluble and insoluble fiber. And, above all, changing the type of viscera throughout the week keeps the dog's body more adaptable, stronger, and with less risk of food intolerances. Another critical point: exclusion of required supplements. Many tutors believe that natural food completely dispenses with the use of supplements. This is not true. While a well-balanced Barf diet covers most of the needs, there are nutrients that, depending on the environment and the dog's health, need additional support. A classic example is omega-3, essential for joint, neurological, and cardiovascular health. Since few dogs consume fatty fish on a regular basis, fish oil supplementation is highly recommended. Similarly, dogs with low sun exposure can benefit from vitamin D3, and older dogs or dogs with joint problems can have good results with hydrolyzed collagen, turmeric, or glucosamine. All of this must be adjusted with professional guidance, but never ignored. There's also the mistake of not observing the signs of the dog's body. The beauty of natural food is that it shows visible results, both positive and negative. If the dog is gaining weight too quickly, there may be a caloric surplus. If the stool is whitish, there's excess bone. If there is itching, hair loss, or vomiting, there may be an intolerance to some ingredient. Therefore, more than following the diet to the letter, the tutor needs to develop the habit of observing the dog. Every change in behavior, coat, breath, or stool, can be a wake-up call. The animal's body speaks, and in Barf, it speaks loudly. To close this block, it is necessary to talk about the food transition made abruptly. Many tutors, when deciding to leave industrialized food, switch to Barf overnight. This can cause diarrhea, vomiting, refusal to feed, and even stress crises in the dog. The ideal is to make a gradual transition, starting with mixed meals, food in the morning, Barf in the evening, for example, and progressively adjusting the proportions. This adaptation can take from 5 to 14 days, depending on the dog. The digestive system needs time to readapt to raw meat, bone, plant fiber, and the gut microbiome needs stability. Respecting this time reduces risks and increases the chances of success of the new diet. Every day, more pet owners report positive changes in their dog's health after transitioning to Barf. And we're not just talking about aesthetics, such as shinier coats or less intense breath, although these are common effects. We are talking about quality of life, reduction of inflammatory diseases, improvement in allergy conditions, increased energy, muscle strengthening, and even regression of symptoms in elderly animals. To understand the power of the natural diet when well formulated, it is necessary to look at concrete cases. In veterinary clinics in different regions of the country, there are records of dogs with chronic gastrointestinal problems that, after controlled adaptation to Barf, started to have firm, regular feces and complete absence of gases. There are reports of dogs with severe dermatitis that have reduced more than 90% of symptoms just by removing ultra-processed ingredients and using meats with low allergenic potential. Elderly dogs with impaired mobility showed more disposition and recovery of lean mass in a few weeks. And it's not magic. It's about feeding based on the biology of the species. But to reap these benefits, it is necessary to follow some fundamental pillars. The first of these is the balanced variety of protein sources. In a weekly menu, it is recommended to alternate at least 3 different types of meats. For example, Monday and Tuesday with chicken, Wednesday and Thursday with beef, Friday with pork, when safe, and Saturday with lamb or fish. This reduces the risk of amino acid deficiency and makes the diet more palatable. In addition, it is important to vary the cuts, chest, thigh, neck, muscle, heart, so that the nutritional profile remains diversified. The second pillar is the controlled introduction of viscera. As nutritious as the liver, kidney, and spleen are, they should make up a maximum of 5 to 10% of the weekly diet. Excess liver, for example, can cause hypervitaminosis A. The ideal is to include the liver only 2 or 3 times a week in small portions. The heart, on the other hand, being a muscle and not a functional viscera, can be used more freely, especially for dogs with high energy demands. The secret is in balance, not exclusion. The third pillar involves the correct proportion between food groups. A good base for healthy adult dogs is 70% fleshy meats and bones, 10% offal, 10% vegetables, and 10% fruits and supplements. But this proportion can be adjusted based on age, size, clinical condition, and digestive response. Senior dogs can benefit from diets that are richer in collagen and have easier to digest proteins, Overweight dogs can receive leaner cuts and increased plant fiber. Everything needs to be adapted to the individual. In addition, many tutors ask, is it possible to do barf living in a small town or on a budget? The answer is yes, but it requires organization. In cities in the interior, direct purchase from butchers and fairs can greatly reduce the cost. Buying in volume, with correct portioning and freezing, also reduces the value per meal. Replacing prime cuts with more connective tissue, such as chicken neck, muscle, or chuck, maintains nutritional value and improves joint health. Using seasonal vegetables from local producers also makes it cheaper and increases variety. And whenever possible, setting up a buying group with other tutors can expand access to suppliers of better quality meat at a reduced cost. Another essential point that the veterinarian reinforces is barf does not exclude veterinary monitoring. The fact that it offers a diet that is closer to the dog's biology does not eliminate the need for regular checkups. On the contrary, it is with these checkups that the eating plan is adjusted, early deficiencies are detected, and the body's response to the new diet is evaluated. Blood tests, stool evaluation, periodic weighing, and parasite control remain part of a healthy dog's routine. Barf is prevention, but it requires vigilance. And when we talk about dogs with special clinical conditions, barf can be a great ally, but it must be even more rigorous. Dogs with kidney failure, for example, cannot consume excess protein. Diabetic dogs, on the other hand, benefit from diets with a low glycemic index without starch. Dogs with liver problems need highly digestible proteins and copper control. And dogs with cancer should avoid inflammatory processes caused by imbalances in the diet. In these cases, the performance of a veterinary nutritionist is indispensable. It's not about giving meat. It's about using food as part of the treatment. To close, the veterinarian points out that barf, when done responsibly, is more than a diet. It is a change of mentality. It is to get out of the autopilot of dry food and look at the dog as a living, dynamic organism that deserves the best possible fuel. It is dedicating time, observing signs, seeking knowledge, and being willing to adjust. And, above all, it is understanding that each dog is unique, and the ideal diet is one that respects its individuality, its history, its biology, and its health. This is the basis of everything. There is no single formula. There is a way, a process, a compromise. And that commitment starts with the simplest choice. What to put in the bowl today? Like, subscribe and share with other tutors who need this information. Leave it in the comments. Have you tried barf? What was the biggest question?